Hey there. So I recently did a talk, 5-minute talk, on my Thinking Critically About Abortion book, or our Thinking Critically About Abortion book, and I thought I'd make a little video about it here. So this is an open access book. It's freely available. That has resulted in maybe 200,000 plus downloads. It's also available on Amazon for $5.38. Why that strange price? Well, that's the absolute cheapest it could be made available. And since we want the word to get out about this, we want it to be as accessible as possible. So it's also available in Spanish and Italian. The backstory of this book was, well, I have various articles on the topic of abortion in the philosophical and bioethical literature for professionals or peer level literature. But I started kind of making more educational materials, beginning perhaps with an essay, Early and Later Abortions, Ethics and Law, that was in this Ethics Left and Right anthology for students, edited by Bob Fisher. And I had the opportunity to revise that for another book, Introduction to Ethics and Open Educational Resource. And in the process of developing that, I found Christina at a philosophy conference, and we have similar perspectives on the issues and similar goals in teaching. So we collaborated on these things. And the essays in this book, we thought, well, we should make these available for a broader audience, and that led to creating the book. Another thing that led to this was a Decatorish.com. That's a local Decatur, Georgia online newspaper. I had a little opinion piece on heartbeat bills at the time in 2019 or so. These bills were coming through the legal or political channels, arguing that embryos have heartbeats and therefore they are persons and therefore abortion is wrong. And so I wrote some things up about how, you know what, you could take some classes from people who actually know about these topics and learn that your arguments are actually very poor. So knowing more about these topics might do some good. All right, so the book's basically an application of basic critical thinking skills to the topic of abortion. And what are these skills? Well, based on my many decades of experience teaching these topics and simplifying them, they largely amount to being careful with defining terms. So this involves asking, what do you mean about various words? And there's all sorts of words about abortion that their meanings are not clear. Human, ahuman, human beings, humans, persons, rights, right to life, abortion, the word itself, all sorts of what do you mean questions need to be clarified. And of course you need arguments, that is reasons to believe various claims. And arguments can be good and bad in various ways. I think we can simplify this question to why think that, what are your reasons? And you can learn things about arguments, what makes them good and bad. One thing about ethical arguments is they tend to be better when they're what's called logically valid. So logically valid just means basically the premises lead to the conclusion and all the premises are stated. So here's a simple argument. Socrates is a man, therefore he is mortal. If you add all men are mortal, that will make the argument logically valid into a syllogism. And this turns out to be very helpful in thinking about lots of arguments about abortion. And then related, we can compare explanations for various things. Like, this is wrong. Well, why? Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's another thing. We can think about which sort of explanation is best. All right, so in the book, we define how to discuss how to define abortion. We discuss many common question-begging arguments about abortion. This is super common. These are arguments that merely assume their conclusions. That's always bad on all sides. We refute some often heard, what we call everyday arguments. These are arguments you would hear from ordinary people who really don't have any training or experience in figuring out what makes arguments good or bad. Nothing against them, they just have never learned anything about this. So they give simplistic arguments that are just bad. And it seems like if people realize that these arguments are bad, they might be able to move on to better arguments. So then we explain why some of the most influential philosophical arguments against abortion are unsuccessful, and give some arguments in favor of at least thinking that early abortions aren't wrong. And then we discuss some complications about the ethics of later abortions and the legality of later abortions. All right, so this is the main thing we do. The book has gotten pretty good reviews, and it's led to a bunch of other things. I've got a lot of articles in Salon on these themes, 4 of them. One of them won an award, a public philosophy award, so you can check these out at salon.com. And the general goal is basically this. Understanding complex issues is important, and abortion is a complex issue. People often deny that, often, I'm going to say foolishly deny that. Why do they deny that? Because they just don't know much about it. Understanding different sides of issues is important. This often doesn't happen with abortion. It's a very polarized issue. People sort of demonize people they disagree with, but they don't even know what the other side thinks. They're not able to accurately report on that. That seems to be bad. Learning something about what makes good an argument, what makes arguments good and bad is important. And this requires some real training. Like, there's real things that people can learn here. They can learn them best probably in classes. And we can sometimes identify really bad arguments. And lots of arguments on all sides are really bad arguments. Finally, we can learn from people who actually study and teach these sorts of issues. So there's expertise about many things, and abortion is one of them. So this is the book. It's freely available at abortionarguments.com, and I hope you check it out. And since it's free, especially share it with anybody and everybody you can. And if you like it, and if you don't, post a review. Thank you.